There's a scared kid going to their first day of high school. Maybe they're the new kid at the school and they don't have any friends yet. Maybe they're just a nerd and not all the cool kids are being nice. Maybe they have some stuff going on at home and they're nervous and kind of uptight all the time. But to work out for these kids, something has to go right. They walk into a room to start an activity they barely know about and it changes their life. Maybe it's the debate room or a science class or a high school paper newsroom, and maybe it's a theater class. This has happened so often it's actually a theme at the Tonys. When Elaine Stritch won in 2002, she invited her high school drama teacher, Mr. Bodick. When Neil Patrick Harris won for Hedwig, he thanked both Churchill Cook and Danny Flores, and he said, quote, "These are teachers in small-town New Mexico who, when sports was the only option, showed that creativity has a place in this world. Without them, I never would have been able to do any of this," end quote. Melody Hertzfeld, a high school drama teacher, got special recognition at the Tony Awards in 2018. She was the teacher at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and she hit 65 students during the horrific shooting there in her theater room. If the measure of a life is its impact on other lives, there is no doubt that one profession that might lead the pack in changing lives are high school drama teachers. Before almost everyone who's made it on Broadway was someone who made it on Broadway, they were theater kids, and they wouldn't have been there without theater teachers. Today, we're going to take a departure from our normal formula and talk to one of the best high school teachers, the Fullerton Union School District's teacher on special assignment, Michael Despars.
I'm John Bruschke, and you are listening to Theater, History, and Mysteries, where I take a musical theater production and go into a deep dive on the questions that it raises and the answers that it provides. I hope that this approach will give a deeper understanding about the lessons that the musical has for theater and for life. And I will never miss an opportunity to pursue any mystery, bizarre coincidence, improbable event, or supernatural suggestion along the way because, in the words of Dirk Gently, it is all connected.
So today is a first. We have one episode on how the Phantom of the Opera can save your life. And thanks to all of you, it is really getting some traction on Buzzsprout. In that episode, I interviewed 5 different incredible fans and how the show had a profound impact on their lives. But today is the first time this show will interview a theater professional from start to finish. And in true PhD fashion, I'm going to be speaking with one of the top theater educators in the state of California. First things first, let's start with introductions.
So my name is Michael Despars, and I am what we call a TOSA, Teacher on Special Assignment, and I oversee visual and performing arts programs for the Fullerton Joint Union High School District.
And about how many schools is that?
It's 6 comprehensives, and then I'm trying to think of what you would want to call it, like a continuation school or a school that supports students that maybe had some trouble on their own campuses, but need to catch up with credits or units before they can go back.
I definitely want to ask you about that.
Yes.
But, so 6 high schools that we would think of as the high schools that we probably went to. And then
Yes.
one of the high schools is for special population of students.
Or alternative education.
And
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
in charge of all of it.
I'm in charge of all of it. Yes.
So how many shows a year is that? But that's musical theater plus
visual art, dance, instrumental music, vocal music,
Wow.
theater. So in my capacity, I'm producing 7 community-wide events. Actually, we added a 7th one this year. Just because there's this greater push for media arts. And so we now have film programs. And so we're starting a film festival. But those community showcase events are meant to be able to show the public what students are doing within our schools. I think a lot of times there's great things happening, but the public just doesn't know about it. And with social media and the internet, like there's more avenues to get that. Yeah, podcasts. There's more avenue to get that information out there. So I produce a theater event, a vocal music event, 2 events in instrumental music. So one is like a marching band showcase where they perform their fall shows, and then a percussion winter guard showcase, which are like the indoor portion of instrumental music in the spring. And then we have a dance event. And then one of our big ones for visual arts is our collaboration with the Muckenthaler Cultural Center, who gives us their space to put student artwork up for 2 weeks at the beginning of their season. So
And they had a Salvador Dali exhibit. Right?
they just had their Salvador Dali exhibit.
Your
Yes.
high school, so like high school student art, Salvador Dali.
Correct.
Side by side. And that's all 7 of those high schools.
Yes.
Come together for those community-wide events.
As long as they have that art form within the school. So at our continuation school, they do more film, graphic arts, drawing and painting. So they don't really have a performing arts component. So it just depends on what school you're at.
And then those are the district-wide events. Do you help individual schools with their productions?
Yeah, so I can help if I'm asked to help. I think a lot of the job ends up being curriculum and instruction. So how do I prepare teachers to deliver instruction to students? How do I give them the tools that they need to be successful that are aligned with, the California standards and framework for visual and performing arts? So that's one component. So it's like I have this community-facing side and getting all this information about what the arts are doing within the district, especially in the era of Prop 28, which was legislation that gave schools over $1 billion worth of arts funding. And that's schools across the district. I wish it was just $1 billion for us. That would be really fantastic. Across the state, absolutely. And so I kind of oversee that, and I've been helping planning on that end. So it's strange. My role went from being a theater teacher to now in this new capacity where, it's not quite administrative, although you have that. So you go from like the creative to the producing side is what I feel like I'm doing right now.
Do you like that?
So there's challenges. I think I miss the opportunities to be creative, but I find other ways to do that within the work, right? So as I'm planning community-wide events, I still get to create posters and social media posts. So I'm putting all my creativity into those types of things as opposed to directing a full production. Yeah.
So is it? Am I understanding right? Your job is to produce some community-wide events.
Yes.
Year, and then kind of not exactly put out fires, but go to the different programs and nurture them and help them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what I do. And we developed a strategic arts plan, which is a set of standards for how we saw the arts happening within the district. So my job is to also oversee that plan and make sure it gets executed. And some of that includes working with the community, creating partnerships, articulating with middle schools and high schools. Around the area in order to, develop programs, get students excited about being in the arts. I think that's a really strong component of that. And just to make sure that we are offering everything that we say we are offering within the district. So, yeah.
Yes, no small. Well, but that would be every theater production, visual arts performance, dance performance multiplied by 7.
By 7. And so we're talking about 100+ events a year in addition to those community showcases. So while I don't have to go into the individual schools and produce their individual events, I'm there for support. I'm there to lend a hand or to connect them with people that I know could support what their project is in that moment.
Okay. And before that, you were a high school theater director.
I was.
And Fullerton High School.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about the building that your productions have?
Oh, so Fullerton High School has a unique situation. Like there are 3 theaters on that campus. One of them is a historic theater that we call the Auditorium. So a big 1,300 seat house. That was built during the WPA projects. So it's historic in the sense that, the inside it's got this California mission style. And then there's this really great mural on the outside, this Kessler mural, that is called Pastoral California, which kind of looks at what this area looked like before, obviously, development. And so it's just an incredible facility with a full fly system. So being a high school theater educator in a space like that I feel very lucky because a lot of times you could be teaching theater at a school in what we would call like a multi-useless room or like a cafetorium, cafegimatorium.
Well, so like for comparison, the Laguna Playhouse is a professional theater. Betty White performed it. It goes back. and it's got 300 seats.
Yes.
And you've got a facility that's got
1,300 seats,
including a balcony.
Yes.
An orchestra pit.
Yes, and a $1 million pipe organ.
Wow.
So it's a pretty incredible facility.
Yeah. And so you have a mantra when you were the director
Yes.
of that program, and that was
that we don't produce high school theater. We produce professional theater with high school students.
Yes.
That was always something that I felt was really important because I wanted students to feel what it was going to be like to work professionally. And even if they decided that they didn't want to do this with the rest of their lives, they got to do it right. And that was really important to me in learning. And I also wanted to encourage them to pursue this as a career. And I didn't want them to walk into a new space like a college or a university or the professional world and embarrass themselves or do something that wasn't like a norm, right? So I felt like that was important.
Theater is nothing if not a big ego-threatening experience.
Absolutely.
Being prepared for that first,
Yeah.
knowing what you're doing matters a lot. And did you feel you pulled that off? Like you were proud of the productions that you put in that?
Yeah, very proud. I mean, I've always seen myself as a student too. So I always wanted to get better. And I will say that, there were some shows there in the beginning that went off, but
when you were directing,
when I was directing, yeah. But definitely as I learned, things definitely improved for students. And then all of a sudden you start seeing these productions that I would consider pretty professional looking. And, that's just how it ends up going. As long as you're, working towards it and you're always willing to learn and you have to sometimes put that ego aside, you can really create some incredible things with students.
I will just editorially say we saw your production of Chicago and we saw other productions of Chicago that we paid a lot more money for. And I thought yours was at least, pulled me in, was more like,
thank you.
I will share. My daughter was one of your students.
Yes, your daughter.
So, I go there and my eye is always drawn to where she was on the stage. And about halfway through, I was like, oh, right, I got to go find her.
There's a whole story, right?
I got to find my daughter. I'm sucked into the whole story that's going on. Okay. And what value do you think it has for high school students? Like you found a passion for it. And I guess if you could also talk about the alternative high schools.
Sure.
Like when a student goes into theater, they obviously learn some of the techniques and the nomenclature.
Yes.
But they learn more than that.
Yeah, I think the skills become really important. Like if I had to take my role today and looking at state standards, I don't see them as standards. I see them as skills that students need to learn in order to be successful. So I've kind of always carried that in the way I taught or what I wanted to see students get out of it. When I start my year, when I was teaching in the classroom, I would always ask students and I would say that here's a challenge. I want you to think of one job that exists in the world where a theater skill is not necessary. And I'm able to figure that out no matter what. Like even from, you're someone who cuts hair. Well, that's about human interaction. It's about making a design decision. It's,
It's like makeup.
Yeah, it's all of that. And so what I think is so great about the theater specifically is it allows you to build up all these skills that you can use no matter what. And I also think theater is the one art form that incorporates all of the other art forms. So you have to be a well-versed visual artist because you have posters and you have to do sketching. You have to, there's music involved, there's dance involved, there's singing involved. So it's
in the sets.
Yes. So it's all the art forms slammed together with music or no music, if that's your choice.
Yeah. Could you just pick out one production you thought went well? And,
Okay.
I'll strike Chicago off that list.
Okay. That's fair.
But one production you thought it went especially well, and why you thought it.
So one of the last productions I did was called A Monster Calls. So it was a young adult novel that was turned into a movie, and then a production was created in England around that script. And a lot of my background is in collaborative and devised theater. So one of the things that I love is putting a script on the table and figuring out how you're going to tell that story. And one of my favorite parts of that is what we call exploiting a moment. So how do you take a moment and expand upon it beyond what the words are on the page, right? And so this production deals with a character whose mom has cancer. And they're constantly looking for a cure for this mom's cancer, and it's very clear that that's not going to happen. And so the kid develops this relationship with a yew tree, and if you know the lore behind yew trees, there's some medicinal properties about these trees, and some belief that maybe it could help, maybe not cure cancer, but help in the development of things that might be able to do that. And so that's all invested, or that's all put into the script. And the things that I think are really interesting about theater, especially when working with students, is that you can take shows that have these really deep and heavy emotional situations, like mom has cancer and at some point you have to say goodbye. And what does that feel like as a student, as you're watching this and as you're navigating through all of that? And so what I really like to do is make sure that my actors or my performers or my students are really thinking about what those themes are, how they become affected by them. And a lot of times they bring in some of their personal life, like they've dealt with these things. And one thing I always like to tell them is that theater gives a voice to the voiceless. And sometimes the voiceless are in your cast and they don't know how to tell that story. And then you get this opportunity with a script and a director and cast members. And you say, okay, this is the story we're going to tell. And you start giving a voice to something that even some of them might be going through. And I think that's what kind of makes theater fun and interesting for me. Like, I understand there's an entertainment component to it, but I don't do theater for entertainment. That was never why I was interested in it. I was interested in the storytelling. I was interested in holding a mirror up to society. I was interested in helping students kind of explore their inner emotions and the things that they're going through and put that on stage so people can see, what is happening in the world. I think we get lost sometimes in the news and the rigmarole that comes with all of that we forget that there are very human stories that need to be told, that go beyond what's happening right now in this minute, in the next 30 seconds. And I feel like the news cycle is always that, right? It's like constant, but we're not telling the important stories.
And the internet has certainly made all that happen fast.
Yes, absolutely.
Attention spans are shrinking and taking a moment to step back and think about it.
Yes, which is the challenging in theater today.
I will say, as a communication professor, like one thing we always talk about is, there's one encounter you're going to have that might only be 30 seconds long or 45 seconds long that can define everything.
Yes.
You're asking somebody out on a date, right? And there's so much context that all goes into that 45 seconds, right? It's just 45 seconds of talking, but there's a huge backstory behind you and your life and why you're interested in someone and why you think they might be interested in you or any other community like job interview, or even just, you're in the supermarket, you start chatting with somebody, right? That can totally change your day. And to hear that, part of theater is you try to capture those, go the other way around. In real life, you have all that context that comes down to those 45 seconds.
Yes.
What you're doing is saying, here's a couple lines, right? What is the hue? What's everything that needs to go into that? And what does that mean for the rest of what you're doing?
And then also, how can we exploit that moment? So like, and I'll give you an example of that. Sometimes it's a character might be talking about something that had happened for them. And so there's one component of theater where someone's standing there, someone delivering a line or a story or a monologue or whatever it is. But then how can you make that come to life on stage while that story is being told? And so I feel like sometimes my job is to take that audience member who maybe is so used to their imagination being shaped for them by the TV or other means that I don't think are as creative, and really get their brains moving by watching and really directing their attention at things. And so exploiting those moments in a script to me are the things that I look for as I'm breaking a script down. Like, how can I, this is the bones of the story, but my job is to make the whole thing come to life. And the best part about working in collaborative and devised theater is it's not always director-led. It's collaboratively led by all the students in the room. So I remember there was a show a few years ago called The Secret in the Wings, and it's a Mary Zimmerman show. And in the show, there's it tells several stories, and one of the stories is about a snake. And we had to sit down and figure out, how are we creating this snake on stage? And so without putting an actor in a snake costume and kind of like writhing on the floor, which seems a little like children's theater, and that's not really what we were producing. And so what came out of the conversation with the cast, with this cast of high school students, is we took tubing from like dryer tubing, and then attached a bunch of sticks to it so we could create this like 15-20 foot snake out of dryer tubing. And the whole show took place in this basement. So one of the other asks of the students is like, whatever we create, you have to be able to find in a basement. So like if you remove the tubing from the back of a dryer, like the dryer vent tubing, can you create a snake with this? And then all of a sudden you have this thing, which to normal people, you're like, okay, that's just a tubing for your dryer. But when an actor believes what it is, the audience will believe it too. And I'm going to say something that I think is what I always tell students is the audience is dumb.
Wait. Not the audience for this podcast. My research conclusively shows the audience for this show is better looking, slightly taller, and far more intelligent than the typical theater audience. Woo! I'm glad we finally got that cleared up. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. I mean, do you really believe that, Michael Despars?
And I don't really believe that, but it's dumb in the sense that like whatever you tell them to believe, they are going to believe in that moment, as long as you have 100% commitment to what it is that you're doing. I mean, that's why we could watch a production of Cats and be like, okay, Cats, and they're dancing, of course, right? Like, and they're singing. Yes. But we never question like, cats can't sing and dance, Right. So those things aren't important.
Yeah. Well, and part of this is you're creating a world with no limits on the stage. Right?
Yes.
You can create a world where cats dance, or where
you can create anything.
Revolution, or create anything. Yeah. I will just share in my brief entry into directing. My background had been in debate, right? So
okay.
I spent all of our time trying to get something an audience would react to. And I had this thing in the script where I'd written a joke, and we got there and everybody laughed. And I was like, yes, my joke was awesome. And then I realized I'd actually written in the script, everyone should laugh.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not as funny as I thought I was, but then I thought, like, this is great. I mean, I can tell the audience that was funny. You're supposed to laugh. And do it with people on the stage.
Yes.
And then after that, learned, hey, wait, all those people standing in the background of those plays I've been watching, they matter a lot.
Yes.
I've heard there's no small parts.
No.
But it literally is, it is so much of what you're focusing on is influenced by the really subtle ways that people in the background are believing for themselves that it's really going on.
And we have an incredible opportunity, especially in educational theater, right? Like we do our auditions, and of course you have a cast, and sometimes you have a show where there's 7 actors in it. And one of my jobs I think is really important is finding the opportunities in the script to incorporate more people. So, and sometimes that comes with an ensemble that maybe wasn't necessarily written in the script. And it doesn't mean you give them lines, but it means you have them help you tell the story. And in educational theater, I think it's important to give students an opportunity to be a part of it. Like, yes, there is an audition, and professionally, they're going to have to go through that. But while they're in my classroom on my campus, I want to make sure that if there's an opportunity, we're going to find it for them so that they can explore those things and create the life of the play, especially even if they're in the background. Like, I think those are important components. And I feel like we have a little more wiggle room on the educational side than you do on the professional side. Because, a Broadway tour isn't going to cast 50 people in a show. They're going to cast 20. And if you look very closely, you'll see the same person dressed up as different things through it. But in education, we could put 50 kids in Chicago and okay, we have, prisoners, cops, whatever else. But it's important to give them the experience and to let them have that opportunity because you don't know what it's going to turn into for them. And sometimes, especially in the theater, the kid just needs a place. They just need a place to go. Because going home and sitting there doing nothing is not as awesome as being in a rehearsal.
Right.
And
even if you're sitting around doing nothing.
Correct. Even if and yes, there's what is it? We always say hurry up to wait is basically what the entertainment industry is a lot of the time. So
yeah. Okay, so that's sort of, so you were Tosa now. You've been a director, and before that you were a college You studied theater in college?
Oh yeah, studied theater in college. So I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting from the University of Southern California. So it was a really specialized program. They accepted 16 people a year. I left high school wanting to teach high school theater.
You're living your lifelong dream.
Yeah, right. Lifelong dream. But because I was so passionate about it and I realized that there were a lot of opportunities that I missed in some ways. And I'm not going to say that every theater teacher I ever had in high school was like horrible. I don't necessarily want to go there, but I saw that there were many more opportunities that maybe students weren't being able to take advantage of. And so that became something I wanted to do very early on. I didn't mention that when the college was recruiting, the university was recruiting, because there are separate programs for that. But the challenge was that there was, back in 1970, there was some legislation that was passed that took the S off the word arts. And so the only credentials in the state of California were a music credential and an art credential. So in order to teach theater in the state of California, you have to have an English degree or pass an examination to show English competency. So someone coming out of theater school having to take a test that asks me about the English language, including there were some things where they would give you like a passage and you'd have to know who wrote it. Which is, and if you never took the class, like how would you know that? So there was a lot of studying that I had to do when I was ending at the university in order to get an English credential to start teaching theater. And that kind of segues into some of my work with the California Educational Theater Association. I'm a past president of that organization. And they had been working since the 70s to reinstate the theater credential and the dance credential. And so in 2015, we finally got legislation in the state to do that. So while it was difficult for me to become a theater educator, it is now not difficult for everybody else who is in a college and university program. And there's a credentialing program here at Cal State Fullerton, specifically for theater credentials, which is fantastic. And we're seeing that across the state. So I always feel like I'm the type of person that even if I had a barrier, I'm trying to remove those barriers for others. Like I want the best people in the classroom teaching theater. And sometimes that's not your English teacher. Yeah. And nothing against English teachers. Like I think what they do is really important and it's all part of the same kind of canon. But, reading a play is a lot different than getting it on its feet.
Yeah.
So
as we lead our parallel lives, I will say I've spent at least 40 hours of my life debating whether or not the S should come off communications.
Okay.
In my degree. And our field started in English. So in 1908, English departments then split into communicate, right? Some did journalism, some did speech disorders, some did public speaking.
Okay.
Often your best public speaking teacher is not the English teacher.
Correct. Yeah.
To summarize your life, you graduated from high school, knew you wanted to be a high school teacher.
Yes.
But the state of California had passed legislation preventing that from happening. You went from USC, and then 15 years later, you, as the president of the organization, got it reinstated so that now it is.
I'm not going to take credit for being president at the time, but I came in right afterwards. I would say my big presidential thing was Prop 28, which was that historic funding. Yeah.
So you didn't actually get it reinstated. You only got $1 billion for state funding.
There was that. And I'm not going to say I did that on my own, at all. There were lots of people. There are lots of really good people who made that happen.
Instrumental.
I was part of the process.
But so USC, you were a theater student. You performed in that.
Lots of plays.
Lots of plays. Okay.
No musicals. Like my background is only in what we would call straight acting or play acting. And musicals didn't come into my life until I had to direct because schools have spring musicals. And so, but I always say if you're a good director, it doesn't matter what it is. You can direct anything. So.
Now, in debate, I would say 0 debate programs have died because of a lack of student interest. But having a good teacher makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
Like just can't, and I'm guessing the same is true of theater, right? 0 theater programs have died because there isn't student interest in a good theater program, but it really takes a lot for a theater teacher, for a high school teacher to take on normal teaching duties, all that after school rehearsal time, being inspirational to the students.
The Saturdays at competitions, like all of that. Yes.
All those liability forms.
Yeah. Buses. And most importantly, figuring out how you're going to feed these kids when they're with you. Right?
Yes. And it turns out humans need to eat.
Yes.
And a place to sleep. Your first experience then was as a high school student. And
yes.
It sounds like your experience with your own teachers was mixed, and that was instrumental in you wanting to make sure there were more opportunities. Is there anything you'd be willing to share about the high school experience?
The high school,
or where did you go to high school?
I went to Glendora High School,
okay.
But I grew up in Azusa, so I had to transfer over to Glendora only because my homeschool didn't have a theater program, and I was really interested in that at the time. Obviously, I made it my whole life, right?
So even going into high school, you were already making life decisions based on what the theater program.
Yes. So I just wanted a school with a theater program. And so I kind of carried that with me. So I actually didn't start at Fullerton. I started at teaching at Mountain View High School in El Monte, which is another Title I school. So students on the low socioeconomic part of society, but with an incredible passion and an incredible arts background. So I started there, and what was really amazing is a lot of the students never had an experience with theater. I was hired because a principal really wanted to expand a little bit. It was like 1 or 2 classes and wanted to kind of have more opportunities for the students there. And so I was taking these students who, in some cases, maybe English was not their first language. I was taking to them and they were winning Shakespeare competitions. And I was like, oh, we got something here. Like, this is awesome. And then the opportunity came at Fullerton High School, and another Title I school, very similar populations to where I was before. And I realized that that's kind of where I wanted to be. Like, you can make a choice and you can try and get a job at what you would consider like an affluent, educational institution. But to me, I guess it didn't really matter. I wanted to make sure that I was supporting a community that, with the arts, that were interested in them. And so I did find that at the 2 schools I was at. But I have a special place in my heart, obviously, for Fullerton High School, just because I was there the longest and got to really see the buildup of a program come all the way to fruition. Like when I stepped down to become a TOSA, I didn't step down because the program was falling off a cliff. And I think sometimes, when you make a retirement decision, you're going, okay, well, this is, it's kind of going down now. So now is the time. No, for me, I wanted to make sure the program was at the top. So whoever took it over could continue going in that direction. And so I was really proud of all of that work.
How long were you for?
So I was 18 years. Yeah. And it might've been like 17. I don't know.
So when the last group of performers were not alive when you had started.
No, which is, I have never thought about it like that, but yes. But it also means I started very young too. So I think when I first started teaching, my students were only about 4 years younger than me. So that was interesting. Especially when you realize you're listening to the same music, but you have to be the responsible adult in the room. So,
yes, fortunately, Bad Bunny is not on my playlist.
No, not on mine anymore. I'm not in the classroom, so I don't know what's cool anymore.
Okay, so that's quite an impressive career as an educator, right? You spent, but it sounds like almost your entire life, adolescence on, you've been thinking about theater.
Yeah, well, and educational theater specifically is. Yeah.
So I guess as a director, with the caveat, there's not one thing that makes a show work.
Sure.
But what do you think a show has to, like, when you think, like, what's the difference between something that takes off and is part of the canon?
Okay. Like professionally or?
Yeah. Like if you were to say The Sound of Music, everybody knows The Sound of Music. But then there's a whole bunch of other shows that are good, but don't have that promise, and some that are, have made the stage and then died. What do you think is the thing that makes something, about a show that takes it from, I can see that there's some value here to this has exploded and now it's become something that just resonates with so many audience members?
I think it's the storytelling. I think it's how the storytelling happens on stage. And I wish too that we were doing a better job of telling more stories.
Can you just I have an intuitive sense for what storytelling means? What does that mean for
I think it's in the way the story comes off of the script and gets delivered to the audience. So some of that is that exploitation of a moment. So in that style of collaborative devised theater, you're able to embed those moments in a way that you can't do when you're just directing a show and saying, this is the page, I'm telling you where to stand. So I think shows that kind of include that collaborative devised moment where you're creating on stage the story. I think those are really important. But storytelling in general is communicating an idea to your audience. And there's a lot of times we don't see shows jump because people don't know them. Like I would say in this community, doing something like a Sound of Music, the community is going to show up for that. They've seen it 100 times, and as a director, I've never been interested in telling a story that we've seen 100 times, or I've been interested in finding a way to tell it in a different way. Mainly because no one wants to go to Romeo and Juliet, the same production of that for the 15th time. Like we want to see something different. And so I wish that audiences were a little more receptive to taking a risk and going to see something that maybe isn't in the typical canon, right? Like your typical musical. And I'm going to use Oh Mary as an example in New York. So you got an entire Broadway play centered around Mary Todd Lincoln, where the writer of the show is also in it. And he basically stated that he knew very few things about Mary Todd Lincoln and made the rest up. And then you get this really poignant, funny, evocative play that doesn't sit in the normal canon, doesn't sit in the normal spaces, but has become largely successful because, people went out to see it and because I don't know if it's not an accurate story to be told, but it is a story nonetheless. Yeah, I saw it over the summer.
Okay, so what do you think? What struck you about that? When you said poignant,
because it's so over the top and it challenges everything that you think about history and what happened in this moment. I don't want to give away too much because there's some things in the show that I think that you need to be able to see, but just this idea that you can take something so ridiculous and it can be entertaining, but it also can make you think a little bit about what was going on at the time. I mean, I think there's some challenging things in this show, even about mental health that they don't make fun of, but exist. And then you recognize it and they make it a little lighthearted. And so you can still see the story and recognize what those things are, but then also laugh at the same time without making fun of something. Right.
Well, history turning on absolutely ridiculous points is probably pretty accurate.
Right. Maybe.
And is that something you would do as an educational?
Oh, Mary, I don't know if it would be appropriate. There's always that fine. Educational theater is hard because there's always a fine line about what is appropriate. I personally don't have kids. By choice, because I taught 180 of them a year, so it was easy to send them home with their parents.
Or you have thousands of kids.
Yes, there's that too. But sometimes there's something that I might be interested in, but I have to also think about the perspective of parents and kids and whether or not it is appropriate for them. And sometimes there's something that is very appropriate that maybe the parents don't think is, but really holds that mirror up to society. So there's a production a few years ago that we did called The Wolves, and it was an all-female soccer team, a high school soccer team. And there's some language in that. There's some, the students are dealing with things like their periods and boyfriends and suicide and pregnancy. And what I think is important about that story is it really encapsulates what teenagers are going through and those things that we want to ignore sometimes as adults and parents. And so we had to make it very clear that if you didn't want your student to be auditioning for this show, there was another opportunity. So we always want to make sure that there's multiple opportunities for students in educational spaces, but that this was a really important story to tell. And I will say that I was even a little uneasy when it opened, like because I always say, like, I don't want to be national news. And you hear about that all the time about productions getting shut down because of appropriateness, especially at the high school level. So I always want to make the right choice for my community. Obviously, like, if this is an important show for this community, I want to respect, parents' rights and their wishes. But I also want students to be able to explore challenging material. Like, if every one of my shows was The Princess and the Pea, that doesn't interest me. I don't think it will interest the students. I really want them to be challenged, but in appropriate ways, right?
Yeah.
So
you've mentioned that you worked at some high schools that were on the economic margins, Title I schools.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think theater means to a school like that? Does it mean something different than, I don't know, Calabasas High or Hills High?
That's an interesting question. I've never thought about that. I think for a school like that, it's number one, Fullerton High School has a very diverse population. And I really pride myself on the fact that when you look at the ethnic makeup of the school, that was mirrored in my program. So it wasn't that you had like one ethnicity who kind of dominated the space, even if they didn't dominate the population of the school. So that was really important. So I would say, like, in a community like that, it's really important for them to be able to see their community on stage. Because I don't think we always get that opportunity with TV, film, and even some touring shows. If you get that opportunity, so I think in a space like that, they get to actually see those stories being told by people in their community, which I think is important, and one of the reasons why you do it. It's also it's a sanctuary space. It's a safe space for students. Let's be honest, students who are interested in the arts, kind of are different, right? They're neurodivergent in many ways. They represent different religions and ethnicities and sexualities, and a lot of times they're just looking for a place that's safe, that they don't feel maybe on other parts of the campus. And I could speak as a high school student, like, there was safety in my theater class that I didn't have in my physical education class. And that's nothing against physical education. I think all of that is important, but it's a different dynamic. It wasn't a safe space, right? And so I think the arts and theater offer that to, I think, all communities.
Yeah. I always felt like if you're an educator and you had to tell your students, look, you have to do well in your other classes every year, and you can't just spend all your time hanging out in the theater room, you've won, right? You've succeeded.
Yes.
You've given the kid a reason to come to the school, a place they want to be.
And sometimes you have that student who, if it wasn't for your class, they would never come to school. And those are conversations that you need to have with their other teachers. Yeah. Like, the reason why they're coming is because of this. So how can we all work together as a community to support this student? And some that looks different for every student.
Yeah. Well, and I do feel my experience with working with the high schools that are not at the center of the economic world, they really, like, doing well at something matters a lot.
Yes.
Right. We have a great program in Fullerton High School. It just seems to me like the unicorn program where, we have this huge diverse community at a Title I school and the best freaking theater in Orange County.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe not the Seagrass room, right? But just the facility's great, the program's great. Like, every kid shows up and feels like something important is happening in this room right now. This production is going to be a big deal, right? This does feel like being part of a professional production, and I just think that sense of pride that you can have in, it can almost be anything, but right here right now it's theater, and this is something that we can all be proud of, that we were a part of.
Yes.
We walk out of that, I might when I leave this building, maybe I'm going to be the kid has to take the bus to college, right, when everyone else is driving in their cars. But right here and right now, I'm doing something that is professional quality, is empowering.
Yes. And I mean, that was always the experience I wanted for those students. I wanted them to feel that, number one, that they're valued, that they have a voice, but also that they could get that professional experience with me. And sometimes that means I'm not the expert. And I think that's really important. And when we talk about egos in the theater, sometimes you have to like control your own ego. And so developing relationships with people on the outside, bringing in people to talk to students. So like, I did a show early on at Fullerton called A Piece of My Heart, which dealt with the Vietnam War and the nurses who served in the Vietnam War. So it's a female heavy show. And I wasn't old enough to be a part of the Vietnam War, but there are people alive who can. And so bringing someone in who has that experience to talk to students also adds that additional layer to the educational experience. So we're not only just putting on entertaining things that mirror society, we're also teaching them about what has happened in the world.
Yeah. Last question.
Okay.
You ended a very successful place, right? You running a fantastic high school thing. You're now spreading that to the entire district. You run the statewide president of the statewide theater organization. Got legislation changed. Got funding to the tune of nine figures.
Yeah.
What were the moments of disappointment or challenge, or were there times where you thought, "Oh man, this is going to be hard. Maybe this doesn't."
So something I talk about a lot is imposter syndrome, which, I feel like I've had a lot of successes in my life, and some of it has been luck. Some of it has definitely been hard work. There's probably a lot more hard work than luck. But there's always this moment where I'm always like, is this the right thing? Or people really love that show, but I'm not so sure about it. And so I think that's the thing that's always in the back of my head. And so I've had to learn to maybe pick my ego up a little bit and to say thank you, as opposed to, oh, it wasn't as good as all of that. So I think that's something that a lot of artists struggle with, because you're in an art form where there's a lot of praise and there's a lot of unfounded praise sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I remember, what's that Friends episode where Joey does the play and everyone's like, oh, that was good. You did that, right? Like there's a lot of that happening. And so you're just never sure how sincere the praise is, which then kind of makes you feel like an imposter when it comes. And so I'm working my way through that. And I hope that I have imparted enough confidence in my students through the years where they're not dealing with those things at the same time. Yeah. So I would say that the struggle really is with me and my thinking, and not with any one thing that particularly happened. I had a pretty good run of things. So
yeah. Well, what I have noticed is in theater, it's constant rejection. Right?
Like, all the time. Yeah.
Most people who audition won't get the part. Mm-hmm. Most people, who write a show will never see it perform. If it gets performed, most of them don't get picked up. The guys that get picked up, it probably won't go to Broadway. If it does go to Broadway, most of them flop. Mm-hmm. Right? And so when you multiply that together, the number of failures is way bigger than the number of successes. But I do think theater teaches, one thing it teaches students is that's going to happen, right?
Yes.
You have failures, and how do you deal with that, and how do you respond and bounce back is at least as important as.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was in a workshop a couple of months ago where someone talked about the fact that it takes 10 to 15 years to get a play from being written to a Broadway stage. And so there's a lot of waiting. And can you imagine investing 15 years into something that then doesn't make it? And I think that's part of it. And that kind of mirrors what happens in life all the time. We try things all the time that we fail in. And it really is about how you get back up and restart the work, or you re-engage with it. And, and maybe it'll be successful. I don't know. I think that's the fun part about the arts too, is it's different every single time. Yeah. And I'm definitely somebody who is not a routine person beyond like a rehearsal schedule. Like I need stimulus in many different ways. So I never wanted to choose the same type of show. I'm always trying to find something new and interesting. And that just kind of keeps me going. So.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for giving me an hour of your time.
Anytime.
I appreciate it. And congratulations on what you're doing as a toast.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I got the right guy in that show.
Oh, I appreciate that. I feel like the right guy.
And that will do it for our conversation with Michael Despars. Now, not everybody has to be everything in theater, but I do think his life kind of shows that if you have knowledge and passion, some organizational skills, some leadership skills, if you have all of it, the total package, which is rare, of course, to find in one person, some really terrific things happen, which will create amazing opportunities for others. There are kids that have gone through that program and had some truly phenomenal theater experiences that just wouldn't have happened if they didn't have such a good guy at the helm. It is important to me that he dedicated his time to removing barriers for other people, and I think the proof is in the pudding there. He became the president of the Statewide Theaters Association and made it so that other people could become credentialed in theater much more easily than he could. It was also important to me that while he was just working in that organization, he helped prop Pass 28 to get $1 billion for the arts. Now, he's pretty good about saying that he doesn't deserve all the credit for that. I'm sure no one person does, but I think he was instrumental in both. I'm giving a lot of props to Michael Despars here, and they're well-deserved, but let's take a moment to thank the theater teachers everywhere, somewhere. Right now is a paid educator, probably with a master's degree, who's making photocopies of scripts or sewing costumes or sweeping floors. And when it's done right, at the end of that process, there's going to be a show that is going to change the lives of the crew, the techies, and the cast forever. It's going to make memories that will last a lifetime and make them better people. Long live the theater teachers. That will do it for this episode of Theater History and Mysteries. 1 week from now, we will take up Hadestown, our first really contemporary post-mega musical production that we'll be taking on. And we're going to start with the Roman poets Ovid and Virgil, who Michael Despars would be happy to hear. We're not just doing the same show over and over, but each had their very own unique take on Orpheus and Eurydice. I will catch you in a week's time, and until then, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Theater History and Mysteries.